What is going on, guys? I am Alejandro Mendoza, and this video is part 2 to my theory/discussion video on Dark Gennai's plan. So if you haven't watched part 1 yet, or if you haven't finished it yet, make sure to go watch it first. I'll leave a link in the description. And with all that being said, let's get this video started. So before we get into the O2 cast, I know, you're all probably just waiting for me to talk about them. Don't worry, I'm getting to them. I just really want to discuss an idea I had about Maki and what I see her role was as besides just being a helper in Dark Gennai's plan, because I think there's more going on with Maki than we realize. Alright, so here we go. So during obviously the last video, I talked about how while the main goal of Yggdrasil and Gennai is to destroy the real world, they still have to deal with homeostasis, and that the best way to deal with homeostasis would be through Kari, since only her and Maki have been possessed by homeostasis. Now Maki herself probably can't or won't be possessed by homeostasis, at least how she is right now, since she's obviously fallen to the darkness, since she's following Dark Gennai now, and she's also kind of gone crazy, because Digimon doesn't remember her. She kind of went a bit crazy over that. But when I really thought back to that scene, the scene with Maki and Digimon, Maki just kind of just grabbing on Digimon, saying for Digimon to remember her, that really bugged me. But it's not just because of Maki's crazy face, but it's because of the fact that Maki didn't know that the reboot would cause all of Digimon's memories to go away. Now the problem I have with that is that Maki, she spent what we could assume is years studying the reboot, because we see just how obsessed she was with getting Digimon back, and with all that research, she ultimately found out what the reboot would do, and yet somehow she didn't know about the memory erasing thing. Now maybe obviously you could say that after she discovered the reboot, she just focused all her efforts into making the reboot happen. But you also have to keep in mind that she's working with Gennai and Yggdrasil, who are really some of the most knowledgeable beings in the digital world, and they'd likely know what the reboot would do, including the fact that Digimon would forget everything up to a certain point. And yet Maki somehow didn't know about that, and that makes me think Gennai purposely withheld that information from Maki, because there were other purposes to the reboot besides just bringing back Digimon who died in the real world. Because when you look at that as their main goal, as just bringing all the Digimon who died in the real world back to life, that seems very just very unnecessary. Because you have to look at the big picture here. In the real world, only maybe a couple dozen Digimon died, and the majority of them were evil. Besides obviously Wizardmon and Leomon, and you also have to think that the digital world itself already has billions of Digimon within it, and and then to have this whole thing have the reboot happen just to bring back a few dozen Digimon at most doesn't add up. So then, what other reason could there be? Remember, Maki, I said, has been possessed by homeostasis before, so maybe Yggdrasil he wanted to use Maki as a test subject, basically, see if Maki were pushed to the brink, basically to a point where she was just about to lose everything, if homeostasis if she were pushed to that point, would homeostasis still help her even though she's in the darkness now? And based on what we see, it doesn't look like homeostasis is going to help Maki. Well, at least not by possessing her. Maybe she could send someone to help her, but it doesn't look like it. And obviously with that, Yggdrasil would then make the assumption that that if Kari were to fall into the darkness, then then homeostasis wouldn't help Kari anymore, or the Digidestined. Alright, so now with that being said, we can finally start talking about the missing O2 Digidestined. Alright, so like I said in part 1, while I do think that Tai will have a role in, Kari's development and ultimately her fall to the darkness, I don't think that it will just be him. I think that the O2 cast, part of the O2 cast will make a return, and they will be the primary cause of Kari beginning to fall to the darkness. Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you watching this video right now are probably thinking that, how can you think that the O2 cast are going to return? There's been no hints in the trailers, It's clearly something going to happen with Tai. Well, you have to keep in mind that this is the 5th Digimon Adventure Tri movie, and we already know that there's only going to be 6 of them. So, like, and not only that, but we've gotten hardly any information on the O2 cast. So you have to look at that, and like, with Symbiosis being, the second to last movie before Try ends, and the fact that we almost have no information on the O2 cast, we'd obviously have to get at least something from the writers about them. Otherwise, it would just like leave it all up to the final movie, and if they did that, well, the final movie would probably be really rushed and just like unsatisfying. So now with that out of the, like, obviously unless like they're planning on making a series after Try, like, I mean, that would be awesome, like, maybe like Digimon Adventure Try O2, but we haven't gotten any hints that they're gonna plan that yet. They haven't said anything. So all we know, like, is that the next movie after Symbiosis is gonna be the last one. So we don't know if they're gonna plan like a sequel after it. So for now, it's just like after this movie and the final one, then that's it. It's done. So now, with all of that being said, let's talk about the missing O2 Digidestined. Now, the problem with talking about them is the lack of information we have about them. Because the first movie, Reunion, that was the movie that gave us like the most information on the O2 Digidestined. Because it obviously showed Davis, Ken, Yoli, and Cody. It showed all of them being defeated as Alphamon stood over them. And we also had that scene with Maki where it shows us the computer screen that has the locations of all the Digidestined, but it marks Davis, Ken, Yoli, and Cody as missing. And that obviously set up like for us to start questioning what the heck happened to them. But like throughout the next 3 movies, Determination, Confession, and Loss, we basically get nothing on the O2 cast. Because like there's no flashbacks to them. And Chai and the rest of the group don't even like say anything about the O2 Digidestined. It's like, it's really annoying because you'd expect after Determination, when Gennai appeared as Ken in his Digimon Emperor clothing, that Chai and the group, would have like at least a conversation about it, like a team meeting about it, but they don't. And we obviously don't even get like a reason why they're not talking about the O2 cast. And it's not like their memories have been It's not like their memories have been manipulated, because obviously when they saw Gennai appear as Ken, they obviously thought it was really Ken. They didn't know that it was Dark Gennai disguised as Ken. And you'd at least expect maybe TK and Kari to talk about it, but they don't. So like, why aren't they talking about the O2 cast and what actually happened to them? Like now, like you could just chalk all that up to just like all the lack of dialogue about the O2 Digidestined to like maybe the writers not having enough time to put like dialogue about them in, or maybe the writers just got lazy and like we're like we're not gonna put anything in. But like as I was going for the movies, like and as like like we still learned nothing about the O2 cast, like I started to think that maybe there's a reason, like why the O2 Digidestined aren't talking about them. Like maybe something happened between the O2 Digidestined and the original Digidestined that caused this to happen. Like maybe the writers, like they're purposely like having the original cast like not talk about them, because first off, like the first reason I came to from that was that maybe the O2 Digidestined have just been missing for a while. They've just been missing for a while, and the original cast, like they just like don't want to talk about it because like it would probably cause like some of them to get really upset, and maybe they just made a pact to not talk about the O2 Digidestined unless like it was absolutely necessary. And obviously at face value, I thought this was an okay explanation, because it's just that they've been gone for a while and maybe they just don't want to talk about them. But then you have Gennai appearing as Ken, and after that the Digidestined would then have to or would want to talk about their missing friends, and it just like really begins to like set in your mind like why aren't they talking about them? So it obviously can't just be like a time thing, but like if it isn't just time, then what else is there? Well, as I was rewatching the movies, I realized something. I realized that, like, whenever I tried to think about what happened to the O2 cast and why the others weren't talking about them, I always thought it in the same, like, kind of context, I always thought it was always as simple as, like, the O2 cast went missing and Chai and the others just didn't know about, like, they don't know what happened to them. But maybe it isn't as simple as that. Maybe there's a lot more going on than we realize, because once I stopped thinking that the O2 cast that the O2 cast just went missing and everybody else just didn't know anything about it, that opened up tons of possibilities. And after thinking about it a lot and just thinking about all these scenarios, I realized that there was this super simple thing that I completely overlooked. This one simple thing that would have made everything change about between the O2 Digidestined and the Tai and the others. And that fact is that, and the simple fact is that, say that Davis and the others, they were fighting Alphamon, because obviously we can assume Alphamon was the one who defeated them. And they started to see they can't defeat Alphamon on their own. They would have obviously then sent a message to Kari and the others asking for help. And then in turn the original cast, Kari and the others, they would have gone to help them. And even though we know they don't make it in time, they still would have gone regardless. So that makes me think that when the original cast went to go help the O2 Digidestined, that something happened. Something happened when they were going to go help them that just caused this drift between the two of them. And I think that ultimately what caused that was that Dark Gennai appeared. Dark Gennai appeared as someone that the original Digidestined just didn't expect. That he took the form of one of the O2 cast and just made up this false story about what happened. And since he was obviously in the form of Davis, they believed him. Now I know that you're probably thinking, what do you mean that Gennai appeared as it? We don't know how long Gennai's been possessed by the darkness. But you have to think that we haven't really seen Gennai in a while. The last we saw him say before Try was during the ending of O2, where after they defeat Malamayotismon. And we don't know what happened to him after that. And he could have started falling to the darkness maybe after Malamayotismon's defeat. Because me personally, I think that the O2 cast went missing a little while after Diaboromon Strikes Back. Just a little while after that, they went missing. And I think that at that point, Gennai himself had fallen to the darkness as well. Because here's ultimately what I think happened. I think this is how it's going to be brought up in the next movie, Symbiosis, obviously. It's that Kari is going to go try to comfort Mako, because in the next movie, Mako's going to be crying a lot and just overall depressed, and everyone's going to have to cheer her up somehow. And with Kari being the other main character, she's probably, at least during this movie, she's obviously probably going to have some impact on Mako, obviously. And so Mako's crying, and maybe talking about how she's a failure as a partner, maybe how she feels that she was useless and should have been able to help Mekumon. And then Kari is I know how that feels. And then Mako looks to Kari oh, shocked, what do you mean? How do you know? You're so strong. And Kari just looks towards Mako and is did we ever tell you about the O2 about our other friend, the other Digidestined? Because I don't think Mako actually knows about them. She saw obviously Ken, but she obviously didn't know who Ken was, and it doesn't look like the original Digidestined have told Mako about them. So she so obviously Mako turns to Kari and is who were they? And Kari begins to talk about all of them, talk about Yoli, talk about Cody, talk about Ken, and talk about Davis, just describing who they were, who they are, and what kind of people they were. So ultimately Kari begins just going through each one of them, but then she gets to Davis and she gets stuck. She pauses for a second, and Mako notices this and is seeing maybe something happened. So Kari still obviously talks about Davis. And then as Kari continues to talk, she's saying how they were all really good friends. And it eventually gets to a point where she's until that day. Because it's then Kari says, it's almost been 3 years now since that happened. And, she goes to say, how after the fight with Diaboromon, maybe a couple days or maybe a week after that, Kari and everybody, like the original cast and the O2 cast, like they all decided to have a day of celebration, celebrating the defeat of the Oboromon, So then all the Digidestined, like that day, like hung out together, and we're just like, having a good time. And eventually, like, everybody starts leaving, they all have something to do. Like, say, Ty has a soccer game, Matt has a concert, just things. And, it eventually gets up to a point where it's only, Davis, Kari, Ken, Yoli, and Cody. And, pretty soon after that, though, Kari has to leave as well. And, that leaves Davis and the other O2 cast alone. And following that, Kari then receives a message from Davis and the others, like, asking for help against the powerful Digimon. And with that, like, Kari would obviously go off with Gatomon, to find a computer so that she can go and help the others. And she eventually does. And then when she enters, like, the area where they've been fighting, like, she's, like, pretty far from it. And, like, she's trying to get there to go help them. And, like, she's going over there, but her Digivice isn't picking up any signals from them. And when she finally reaches, like, where Davis, like, messaged her to go to for the battle, like, she just sees, like, this destroyed wasteland, like, just, like, everything's just destroyed all around, and, she doesn't see anybody there. So, obviously, she and Gatomon, like, begin looking for them, and it's, like, they begin calling for them, but, like, there's no response, and, like, Kari's about to give up, but then, like, her device, Gatomon, like, spots someone, like, Kari, like, looks at her Digivice, and it has a Digivice signal. So she goes over there, and, like, she eventually sees a familiar figure, and it's Davis. Or is it really Davis? Alright, so she goes over there, and Davis is just like all battered and bruised, and she asks him if he's okay and just begins trying to help him. And then, like, Davis, like, looks at Kari, like, Kari, where were you, And, like, Kari's like, I just got your message. And, like, Davis, like, she's like, also wondering where Ken, Yuli, and Cody are. And, like, Davis was like, they went back home. And, like, like, what about Vemon? And, like, Davis pauses and, like, says, like, and Vemon is dead. Like, and, like, Kari's just, like, shocked at this. And so, ultimately, like, Davis goes on, like, how in the battle, like, that the Digimon they were fighting was about to kill them, and Imperial Digimon sacrificed themselves to stop him. And, like, Kari's, like, about to, like, comfort Davis and stuff, but, like, Davis is just like all angry, like, why weren't you here? Like, you should have been here to help us. And, like, Kari's just, like, shocked at this because, like, she would never expect Davis to say this at her. And, like, like, Davis is just got, like, getting, like, just, like, angry at her. And, like, he's like, you should have been here a long time ago. And then, like, he's saying, like, how they got a message to go help the digital world, like, a while ago. And, like, like, Kari's like, I didn't get any message like that. But, like, Davis, like, gets out his D terminal and shows her, like, we were all sent this message by Gennai. He asked us to come here. Like, and, like, like, just, like, saying, like, so where were you and everybody else when we needed you? And, Kari's just, like, at a loss for words for this. Like, like, because, like, it, like, suddenly, like, that message also appeared in her D terminal, too. And she's wondering, like, what the heck happened. And, like, this just leads, like, into a fight between Davis and Kari. And it ultimately ends with Davis, like, going off and saying, like, goodbye, Kari. Like, and, like, saying, like, you guys obviously don't care about us since you were so busy doing your own things. And, he takes off his goggles, and he throws them, like, saying, like, since we're no longer part of your team, I might as well get rid of these goggles. And, like, he leaves, and, like, Kari just begins, like, to break down, and just begins crying. And, ultimately, Ty and the others show up and, like, ask Kari what's wrong. And, like, Kari doesn't look at Ty, but, like, she has the goggles in her hand, and she's like, big brother, why? So, yeah, that's basically kind of what I see happening. But, like, unknown to Kari, though, that wasn't Davis. That was actually Gennai disguised as Davis, just feeding her a false story about what happened. And I feel like that Dark Gennai himself would then, like, use that against Kari, like after, like, Kari tells this to Mako, like, maybe further down in the film, like, like, Kari encounters Dark Gennai alone, and, like, Dark Gennai begins to, like, taunt her about, like, her missing friends, and ultimately, like, he reveals to her that day, like, that wasn't Davis, that was him. And, like, could you imagine how angry Kari would be with that. Like, to think that, like, that your friends hated you, like some of your, like 4 of your closest friends, like just hated you and wanted you, like, like didn't want to see you ever again. To find out, like, that they might not even be alive anymore, and like that Gennai, this guy who's supposed to be like, someone you trust, like he impersonated one of your friends just so that he could mess with you. Could you imagine how just like traumatic that would be for Kari? How angry Kari would get at that? And ultimately, I think that's what's gonna happen with Kari. It's that like she's gonna remember what happened with the O2 cast. Dark Gennai is gonna reveal that it was actually him as Davis, and it's ultimately just gonna like just get worse from there. And that is what I think is gonna happen between the O2 cast and Kari. So, thank you all for watching. This has been, I really expected to upload this sooner, but life just kind of got in the way, and like I feel like I kind of rushed a bit through this. Like, I will be posting a video like completely detailing like my whole theory, like on both not just like Kari's like side of the story with the O2 cast, but also like what actually happened to them. So look out for that. And yeah, just overall, if you liked the video, like if you enjoyed the video, then maybe leave a like. And if you're interested in any future content I have, make sure to maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. And yeah, I'm just happy I got this video out. And if you have any thoughts on me or any thoughts on the video or anything at all, just post it down in the comments. I am Alejandro Mendoza, and I will see you later. Bye.